Welcome to Product School. My name is Carlos. I am the founder and CEO of Product School. We organize weekly workshops about product management every Wednesday at same place, same time. So for the ones that is first time here, welcome. For the ones that been here multiple times, that's awesome to see you. Tonight we are going to talk about UX design and user testing. We have a guest speaker. Her name is Alex, and she works for a company called UserTesting.com.
Yeah, very briefly again. Yeah, so I work at UserTesting. I'm a researcher there. Very quickly, what I do. So at UserTesting, so I don't work on the product team there. I'm a consultant for other companies. So for our enterprise clients, I do research for them. So because this is about 30 to 40 minutes, I'm probably going to skip through a couple slides really quickly because I thought it might be a little bit longer. That was my fault. So you might see some things go by really quickly. But please let me know if you have any questions. Just raise your hand or speak up. It's fine. So I just very briefly want to talk about what is user research, why do it. I don't necessarily know the background of everyone here, like how familiar you are with user research. So I'm just going to give a little blurb about it right now. So basically, what it is, it encompasses like all aspects of interaction. Read that here. So from like, if it's like it could be the experience in a store. It's how you experience a website, like from the music that you hear in the store to the way it's designed. Again, like from like how hard it is to tap something or to reach something. Why do user research? Short answer, in the long run, it is good for business. A little bit more to explain that. So most projects fail because they don't necessarily work well, or it's not exactly what like somebody wants. And so one way to hopefully avoid that is to do some research ahead of time before you put so much money and effort into something. And in terms of decreasing cost, it is so much more expensive to fix a problem after you've launched a product than it is at the very beginning. So today what I'm going to talk a little bit about is lean UX in meeting, just sort of, instead of thinking about it in terms of like, we're going to do research at like one stage, about doing it at like multiple stages to save you money in the long run. Just think about in terms of like, whether you're a student and you're writing a paper or you're building something like a website, you want to give somebody something, you want to give somebody like a draft of an outline, you know, even if it's a paper sketch, because you put like only a little bit of effort into that paper sketch. Think how miserable you would feel if you built something and you paid a lot of money to build it and then you find out your whole concept makes no sense to the people who are actually using it, and then you have to start from scratch. And no one wants to start from scratch. So the number one rule of UX, you are not your user. This is something I find all the time. It's so funny. The last time I spoke at CCA, and I was talking to students, and this young woman was telling me how like horrible this website is, and nobody would use this, nobody would ever do this. And then I just said, well, I do that. And she was like, what? And her expression, like, she was really young, I'll just say that, but her expression was like, you're so old, why would you do that? That makes no sense. And I was like, well, you are not the user. So you have to imagine like what you expect. That might very well be true, but it is not necessarily true. And so this is why you want to test. And you want to test early, test often, and most importantly, be open to feedback. So I have a picture of Jar Jar Binks. So there's a rumor that George Lucas wrote the episode 1, and I assume 2 and 3, like in one draft, didn't show it to anyone. You don't want to have the Jar Jar Binks of websites. Like, so this is what happens when you just do something yourself and don't think to like, maybe I should show it to someone else and see what they would think about it. You don't want the Jar Jar Binks of websites or products or anything. Nobody wants that. I'm going to just, for the sake of time. Okay, so again, what's lean UX research? Basically like a traditional The traditional form of doing research was more along the lines of you're going to do research up front, and then you're going to build something, and you're going to launch it. And in a lean UX, it's more of like testing at every step, but you're going to be testing with paper prototypes. You're going to be testing with outlines. You're going to be testing just with ideas at every step of the way. So test as much as you can and as frequently as you can, so that by the time you launch something, and the thing is, in terms of, you don't think of launch as like the end. It's like, even when you launch something, it's like, keep testing, because nothing's perfect. And there are always improvements that you can make, especially now when more and more people are trying to think about accessibility. So like, great, this website works for this group of people. What about people who are hearing impaired? Like, what about people, like, think about like the elderly. Like, if you can't, like, if it's hard to click around everywhere. So intense, like, again, always improving. So there's always work that you can do. So, what is user testing? So in terms of my company, what is it that we do there? Basically, we provide insights based on videos of customer participants interacting with a website, an experience, an app, a location. You know, somebody could be using their camera to take video. They like to use this phrase, which is, if you can imagine it, we can probably test it. That sounds very much like an ad. But in terms of what it is, it's like, really, it's like, in terms of how this fits into lean UX research, we test a lot of prototypes, and we really encourage that because, again, we test at every stage, and that's great for saving you money in the long run. So again, a little bit about what we do. So what the tool is, I know a lot of you said that you've heard of it or you're familiar with it. It is, we couldn't show you a video because the sound wasn't working. What you will see is you will see a participant screen, and you can hear their voice, you can see their mouse, you can see where they're clicking. They're asked to think out loud. If it's mobile, you can see where they're touching, like it will show like a blue dot. It also has the ability for like destination tests, where you can have somebody go out into the wild and use their front-facing camera and record an experience. Part of what makes user testing easy from a research perspective, and like from you as project managers, why that would make it easy for you is that you get results very quickly, like usually within an hour, depending on the demographics that you're searching for. And that's because we have a panel of testers. And they're from all over the world, primarily United States and Canada, but growing all over the world. And you can use it on, like I said, desktop, mobile, tablet, looking at an experience. And you won't see the participant's face, but you can hear their voice. And you can see where they're clicking. So a little bit about the pros and the cons of unmoderated research. And again, please stop me at any moment if you have any questions or comments. Feel free. So there's a good and bad. So I want you to think of a tool like user testing, or just in general, unmoderated remote research, because there are other tools besides user testing, as I'm sure you all know. Good and bad. Think of this as one tool in your toolkit. This is not going to get you everything. It's not meant to get you everything. It's meant to get you some things. And the things that it can do very well. Yes? Oh, was that again?
No, I'm just...
Okay. Quick turnaround time. Like I said, usually within an hour. I know the first time I used it, I was actually like shocked at how quickly and a little like, no, I wanted to make some changes on the test. I should have thought about that a little bit quickly, a little bit more clearly the first time, because it filled very quickly. We do all the recruitment for you, take care of all the payment, it's all taken care of. All you have to do is write the test. And there's no researcher present. So this is good and bad, but I would say the good reason is that a huge problem with research is that bias and privilege come into play. So anytime you can avoid that, that's good. And the thing is, like, it's impossible to completely get rid of. So, like, anyone who says, like, you like you can get rid of it completely, it's not true. But not having somebody there has the potential to eliminate some aspects of privilege and bias. What's wrong with privilege bias? There is an example that historians like to use for, like, a perfect example of this, which is during the Depression. There were people who took down former slave narratives. Amazing, wonderful, this is so great that we have this. The bad thing is, guess who was conducting these interviews? White people. So the problem there, I think, is perhaps obvious, I would hope, which is the people that are being interviewed probably don't feel super comfortable talking to this person to, like, share intimate details about trauma. So wonderful that we have these narratives. Wouldn't it have been so amazing if we had, like, the proper person to actually interview these people, and we'd have, like, so much, like, the information that we would receive would have been so much better. So that's the reason why you want to, like, do your best to eliminate privilege and biases, because what you're after is not somebody telling you what you want to hear. What you're after is good research. Okay, so some of the cons. You aren't there, so you don't have the ability to stop somebody and say, what did you mean? Can you talk a little bit more about that? So you can't physically do that. I'm going to talk a little bit later about ways that we try to work around that. But yeah, you're not going to be there to physically, like, prod a tester. Also, you're not there to clear up any confusion. What you will sometimes see, like, in one-on-one interviews or whatever, you have the ability to say, oh, actually, you know what, I'm sorry, what I meant is, can you go over here? Can you click this? Or, I see, like, this is great, what you're saying is great, but can we get back to this topic? You can't do that because you're not there. Again, there are ways to minimize this, but again, this is something that is a con. And probably the biggest one, inability to see, like, the environment in full context. Meaning, if you want to see, if you're testing something, like a website, and you want to see, like, how somebody interacts with it, that's great, like, to see the interface, like a computer. But if, like, you're more interested in, like, what's going on all around them in terms of people that are near them, the noise, you obviously can't capture that, because you will get their audio, you will get their screen, you won't get the full context. So again, this is why I say this is one tool in your toolkit. So again, I don't know how many of you will actually be doing user research, but this will be, like, either for you or, like, something to think about if you're, like, for the researcher on your team. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how to, mostly I'm going to talk now about sort of the tips and tricks to work with the cons to make them not as bad. What you can do to actually get quality research. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about, like, how you can physically do it with user testing, but I want to stress that all of this applies to any other platform that does unmoderated remote research. And I would say it also applies to just doing user research in general, because these are just best practices where you have to definitely think a little bit more about your words is with unmoderated remote, because you're not physically there. So again, all of this basically applies. It's just general approach to good user research. So on the user testing tool, and later on we have a code for you and instructions if you want to try this out yourself. You can do that. If you don't want to, that's fine, but you can if you want to give it a try. You log in, create a new test. What can you test? You can test if they understand it. Can they access it? Can they use it? Is it easy? Do they enjoy it? And with all of these, of course, we'll get into this later a little bit more. you want to find creative ways to ask these questions rather than to be very direct and say, like, could you use it? There are creative ways to do that. What you shouldn't test. If participants would actually do this in their daily life, like, would you do this? People are like really terrible about projecting what they're going to do. It's sort of like, will you buy this? I mean, I see that question a lot from clients, like, how likely would you be to buy this? Well, I mean, does it even matter, really? Because, I mean, maybe that might be useful, but that's such a hard question to actually get an honest answer to. Do they like it? By what's wrong with like it, it's like, what do you mean by like? So it's fine to ask somebody, like, if they prefer something, or I would say if you're trying to get at like what works or doesn't work, be specific in terms of rather like, do you like this feature? It's like, is it useful? Is it aesthetically pleasing? Be specific. That's what we mean by that. And in terms of which one do they like better, again, same thing. Which one's easier to use? That is more clear. Which one is, which design do you prefer, like for aesthetic reasons? So before you launch a study, and this is, can't stress this enough, one of the most important things to do with any study, whether it's, again, with user testing or any sort of research in general, or design, the most important part is the brainstorming phase, really, in so many ways. You're trying to figure out what exactly you're trying to learn. So spend a lot of time really nailing down your objectives. Do you have broader specific goals? Like, what are you really trying to answer? Are you looking for just like a general UX assessment? If that's true, general questions with maybe a few specific questions. But just sort of like generally like letting people do whatever. Because you're gonna just see people do whatever, like talk freely. If you really wanna know, say, on an e-commerce site, if the filters are easy to use, you have to make sure you get somebody to those filters. So that's what I mean about broad and specific tasks. Like if you just ask somebody to purchase something and go about it however they want, you might find out like certain things about the purchasing process, and that's great. But if all you really want to know is do these filters work, you have to make sure that you're being specific and directing people to do that. But again, that's the same for in person or unmoderated testing. So basically, so the user testing sessions should run about 15 minutes. And I know this probably seems short if primarily what you have done is what I used to do before user testing, which is like more contextual inquiry where you're just like sitting and talking to somebody, and like the interviews usually last like half an hour to an hour. They're actually not that short because you're only looking at a few things. You're not necessarily trying to answer all the questions. So like what you should do, again, thinking about it and your objectives, have a roadmap. Think about what it is you're all trying to answer. Break them up into tiny, tiny chunks. So for each test, we suggest no more than 3 objectives. So you just try to like really focus your questions. If any of your questions in any test you're doing, whether, again, I'm gonna like keep saying, or actually I'm gonna stop saying it at this point, just assume this is what I mean when I say research, unmoderated, remote, or just in person. If your question does not go back to an objective, cut it. Unless it's one of those like, how you doing, trying to get to know you, to make them feel comfortable questions. User fatigue is definitely a thing. And by that I mean, you don't really want a half an hour test with somebody playing around with the website, because chances are, by minute 23, they're over it. They're like looking at their clock. They're ready to go. So the feedback you're getting later on in the test is most likely not going to be as valuable at minute 10. So some clients, and I really love this idea, they will have their objectives on a sticky note, and they'll put it on their computer, and they'll just leave it there as they're writing their tests and thinking about their study and going, can I draw a line? If I can't, out. And it's not saying you throw out that question completely. You put it someplace else for the next test. When you answer, those questions and you can focus on that. Because it's much better to get a lot of information on a few things than some information on a lot of things. So in terms of thinking about sample size, and I realize I'm at minute 15, so I better really hurry up. Thinking about sample size, basically 5 participants per study is what is considered the best bang for your buck, generally. You don't need 100 people to tell you a door is broken. You probably only need 2. And same thing applies to like a website. If someone is having a hard time doing something, chances are it's not that person. Chances are the website is not designed well. So you don't need a ton of people. Now, having a lot of people is beneficial for like if you're trying to like prove a point. I know sometimes for project managers or product managers, like you need like to show your boss like, okay, 200 people said this, like, can we go with it? Like, I understand the need for that. But most of the time, for usability issues, you only need 5 people. And always, always, always do a pilot study. In terms of getting the right participants, I want to stress this. The worst user is better than no users. So don't spend like a ton of time trying to figure out, I want to find somebody who is exactly the right person to take this test. Because the right person to take your test, generally if it's a usability test, is anyone. Really, it's like, do you own a company? Like, have you been to a website? You know, like generally speaking, most of the time, that is really all you need. Now, sometimes you need to get more specific, like if say, you're selling like complex photography equipment, then like people will be focused on like, I don't understand any of this. You know, so that's when you might want to consider screening. But in general, minimal screening is required. And keep the screener simple and clear. Because of time, I'm going to sort of avoid this. We can talk about this later if you want in terms of like how to write good screeners. We can talk about that later. Feel free to ask. With the test, again, for time, broad and specific tests. Broad tests are great for understanding like how a user thinks or would behave naturally. So like asking somebody to explore the site as they normally would, or asking somebody to purchase something, anything that they want, you'll see them naturally interact with something. Again, like I mentioned, you want specific tasks to make sure they focus on specific features. And this is really great for identifying pain points. So like, if you're really trying to figure out what works and what doesn't work about something, you really need to get more specific. And this really actually refers mostly to unmoderated remote. You have to be so much more clear in a test like this than you would if you're speaking to somebody. Because if I'm speaking to you, I'm probably going to, like I just did now, stop in the middle of a sentence, clarify something, pause and like see your reaction and go, actually what I meant is this. You can't do that if all they see is a task box. Because that is what somebody will see with user testing or the other types of tools. They're just going to see your written word. So if you're asking them 4 questions at once, you're going to get an answer probably to 2 or 1. If you're asking them to do something where the grammar is like makes no sense, they won't understand your question. So I know this sounds like really like very, very basic, but this is stuff I see every day. So you just want to keep it simple. And you should use instructive active language, meaning like if you want somebody to, if what you really want somebody is like to do something, you have to tell them to do it instead of just like, how do you think you would? Because like, that could be interpreted multiple ways. So when you're writing something and you're not there, you have to think about all the different ways this can be interpreted. Don't use jargon. This is something, again, I see a lot when clients write their own tests, meaning like, don't say PDP, don't say call out, don't say anything that like you as a team like know like the back of your hand up the window. Hamburger menu. Not everyone knows what a hamburger menu is. You know, it's like the 3 lines in the corner. Like, keep it simple, because I always imagine you are writing this test for like, and I don't mean this in any sort of pejorative way, your mom. Somebody who's not in UX. like somebody who is like an average Jane or Joe user. So that means no jargon. And again, why? Because confusing tasks mean you are not going to get good answers. You're going to get confusing answers.
Well, I was just thinking, do you offer your expertise to people that are trying to get up on this, to be able to do it themselves?
Yeah.
It seems like the little bit of coaching for the first few tests would be very helpful.
So yeah, I mean, like that's what I do. Yeah. So enterprise clients, they'll say they want to work with user testing, they'll get assigned a researcher, and depending on what it is they want, like I've worked with a ton of clients where really like it's just me showing them best practices, and some of it's helping them with like their first couple tests, and then they go from there. Yeah, and then for other people it's like full service, meaning do the research, perform the analysis, present to the company, whatever they want. Yeah, but yes. Again, the most important part is like why all of this is because what you're really after is quality feedback. I have had a few clients that say, really what I want is I just want you to tell me that they like this more. That has happened multiple times. That's not good research. And in the long run, that's really not good for you, like you, the company. It's just like, yes, this works. What if it doesn't work? Again, you want to make people feel comfortable. So with an unmonitored remote testing, sometimes that means you have a few questions at first where you're just asking them to talk about something. I had a client who, I cannot say who, but it had something to do with marijuana. Let's just say that. And so they wanted people to like talk about their marijuana use, and so like it's legal here but not legal everywhere. So like the first couple questions are just like trying to get them to feel like comfortable, like we're not going to rat you out to the FBI, like we're cool. That's an extreme example of this, but again, even when you're talking like general research, it's really good to make your participant feel welcome and that they're not being judged. Something I love to do when I'm just doing one-on-one interviews is tell them I don't work for this company, and that's true with user testing, but like it doesn't matter if it's true or not. Just you want to make the person feel comfortable, because internet comments aside, I like to think that people are mostly good people and not horrible and mean. So you want to make them feel comfortable that they actually can speak openly and honestly. Beware of leading and bias. So in terms of like, here's like some bad examples. Was it hard to find this? The fact that you're like insinuating that it was hard, yes, maybe, I don't know. Is the new version better than the old one? Like that's wrong for like multiple reasons. Like one, like people always assume the new one's better, but you're like asking them flat out, like, is it? Tell me it is. And also, and this one seems like more innocuous than the others. What would you improve about the page? So why this is bad? Not as bad as these, but why it's bad is that you're asking somebody to flat out say like, tell me something that's wrong. And again, like I said, probably something that's wrong, but it doesn't matter. It's like what you're asking them is like, find something. Like I know maybe you didn't even see something that bothered you. Tell me something that's wrong. You don't want false positives where people will just start, I mean, I guess you could fix this. I mean, I don't know. And that's not quality research, so it's not necessarily going to give you quality data. With user testing, we have metrics tools. So when to use these? Written questions are great for if you just like want somebody to like really focus and you're like, give me one word to describe this experience. And that's great. Again, that's great for like just trying to assess like a feeling. It's also really great if you're like trying to present this to like people, like stakeholders, where you can like have a word cloud or something. That's like why you want to think. You say, this many people said this, very concisely. Rating scales. Again, those are good and bad. I mostly use the rating scales as follow-up questions because with unmoderated remote, you don't have the ability to say, tell me more about that. A ratings question is a really good way to say, you know, how easy or difficult was this? Tell me why. And they're also really great, again, for in terms of presenting to stakeholders, because you can have nice, concise clips and quotes from people, rather than when they're exploring something and they're here, they're there, they're everywhere. It's like, this is a nice quote that you can sort of present to somebody and say, here, this is why we need to fix this, says by participants. And again, with multiple choice, those are really good for, all these are great for like looking at it afar. So you can sort of like see at a glance, one way or the other. This is going to tell you the what, it's not going to tell you the why. And, okay. Always test, yes?
As part of making the user comfortable with the test, is it okay to give them a context?
Oh, yes. Yes.
So for example, let's say I'm working on an article for plumbers, right? Like, do I give them a context before they start? Like, because the user could be anyone who they might not be a plumber, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, so because of time, I didn't talk about, like, we do have an introduction field with user testing, but again, like, you would do this in any other research. Tell somebody what the purpose is. Now, don't, like, tell them specifically, I want to see if the filters work. I want to see if you use the filters. You don't say that, but you just sort of say, like, today we're going to be looking at a shop, like we're going to be shopping for shoes today. Let's sort of give them a context, let them know what they're about to do. And you definitely want to let them know if they're about to do something, if there's any chance that it could at all negatively affect them. Most of the time, if you're doing general usability research, this is not going to be an issue. But if it is, like if you're doing more exploratory research, especially when you're dealing with stuff like health, you know, death, dying, anything that could like be a trigger, you should like definitely give somebody a heads up, like this is what we're going to be talking about, and if you feel uncomfortable at any stage, you don't have to participate. So that's very important. But yes, you can, of course.
I feel like the content also mine, like if I give my test to a website that gave me an answer in an hour, to be honest, I don't really trust the answer because my client's problems are not the same problems that someone's going to give me in an hour. It feels like it could test exactly, like, okay, like, can you go next? Could you find this button, like, technical skills, but it won't test whether I'm solving the problem. Like, the person in an hour that will give me an answer won't know that my client is worried about, for example, how long the student is going to stay in one level before they go to the next level of their class. You know, I just feel like
Well, I'm sorry, your class, but
no, I mean with mine, it's not like mine is for students and for English language studies, but they won't have the same. They won't recognize what they're concerned about.
If the context is very niche, that only a few people understand. Let's say lawyers, right?
yeah. If you screen for
You can
lawyers,
say, think like a lawyer, but
or you screen for lawyers.
It's not a problem.
Yeah.
So they could test like the buttons and technical, but I don't think they have the problem.
Well, it's sort of, again, this is why you want to really define your objectives, and like I said, this is one tool of many.
Yeah.
So, you know, in like my previous job, so much of this was like trying to understand like the day-to-day life of a cab driver. This would have been great for like understanding certain aspects of it, but like getting to know the cab driver, that's not, this is not going to help. This is one tool, and you should never think of like any approach to research as the way to go, because it's not. It's one thing that you can do, but I mean, but it's not just for tech. I mean, there are, again, you have to get creative. You know, like with anything. So it's like you don't necessarily even have to have a website. Some people just send somebody to Google and then just ask them questions, and you're not testing any website. You just want to like tell me about this, and whatever it is. Again, I don't really know your situation, but there are creative ways that you can definitely. Oh yeah. But again, like I know I spent a lot of time talking about usability. That is like one thing that we do. There are, and again with research, like that's one aspect of research. But this is why you want follow-up questions. So it's not so much that can you do something, it's the why. So this is why you like really, this is again why you only want a few objectives, because like you're only looking at a few things, and then it's like you keep asking more about what was unclear, what would you like to see, tell me more about, just to get them to keep talking about something. So very okay, we're gonna try. Test the test always. What we do at my job, every time that we write a test plan, we send it to another researcher to look at. And it's very rare that it comes back without a change. And these are people that do this all day. So this is just because you totally understand what it is that you want to know. And this is even harder if you're a designer. And I feel for you because this would be really rough. If you're the designer and you want to see if somebody understands, or if what you have made is easy to use, you know exactly what you mean. You know exactly how everything works. You know exactly, it's like, again, it's like you're writing and your brain fills in blanks. Your brain will see 2 words, like the, and just read the. It will skip over mistakes because you know exactly what you mean. So you always want to have somebody else look at it. Again, no jargon, no colloquialisms that are just no abbreviations that are hard to understand, and check if the links work. So that's the first part. Then dry run. We always launch dry run, meaning you launch the test. And again, this is for any type of research. You go through the process and then you make changes. And again, it is very rare that there is a test that is launched that has 0 changes because you realize there is a better way I could ask this. Or there's a better way of getting the information that I'm looking for rather than what I said. This is really important, and I see this a lot. If you get research back and you're well, this is horrible. Well, again, whether it's unmonitored remote or anything, and you're this wasn't I didn't get anything. They didn't answer anything. Chances are you weren't asking the right questions. And always remember, you're testing the site, the experience, the product, whatever it is. You're not testing the testers. And so I see this a lot when the client might take notes on the dashboard, and it's they don't know how to do this. It's over there. Well, maybe you need to think more about why they assumed it would be over here, rather than saying, you're stupid. The user is not stupid. The user is not stupid. That is the moral of the story. But again, if you get poor results, change the test rather than throwing it out and saying this person is not giving me anything valuable. Because we're getting close on time. Any questions before I continue? Or I can stop and we can just talk whatever everyone wants. Yes?
Well, I'm wondering, your panel, how big it is? Are you subcontracting that to a panel company?
No, it's
your own panel.
Yeah.
You build it. Mm-hmm.
So this is where I'm terrible at this.
Oh,
I'm not on the sales team.
Okay.
So I know we have a lot of people. I'm sorry, that's a terrible answer. We're growing. I know that we have a lot of people. I'm scared to give a number because I don't know what it is, and I don't want to get in trouble.
Do they get paid?
Oh yes. Mm-hmm. Participants get paid. And again, if you're ordering the test, you don't have to deal with that. So I know, again, when my previous job, that was the part that I hated. It was I had to float a couple $1,000s for a month until my company paid me back. Yeah.
How's the fact that they get paid? Does that bias the test results?
That they're getting paid. I mean, in general, with research, I think that's sure enough. That is definitely something, but you have to pay people for their work. But yeah, that is something to be considered. This is why you want to screen properly, and it's why you also want to let make the person feel comfortable, letting them know seriously, you want to know what's wrong or what's working. You're not looking for them to tell you what they think you want to hear. Mm-hmm. And again, this is a problem with in-person stuff, because people mostly are nice. I hope, I think. And so they want to give you the answer that they think you want. So it's like, it's important that you just do your best to make them feel comfortable. And that's tricky. Yeah.
So for all these tests, they all happen remotely, or do you perhaps, like, can you also collect the people in the room, in fact, in the room, and do face-to-face, or does everybody do it at their own pace?
So like the user testing tool is primarily remote. Well, it's remote, entirely remote. But we can do like some moderated where like you're talking to the person one-on-one, so we do that as well. And like I said, there's also ways to like, where it's more like looking at an experience or trying to get a context as well. But yeah, it's remote. Though I don't know what the future holds. Yes?
Can we talk more about filtering by user type?
Sure, like for participants?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure, what do you want to know?
Well, I guess I just wanted to see kind of at a high level how it works, and then maybe go into some specific like
Sure.
use cases.
Yeah, so let's see. I could, well, all right. Let me just pull up the actual website. How's that? Let's see what else.
Can you do
Web
a job type?
expertise? No, not job type. Country, but you can screen for that. So like if you're looking specifically for people who,
Like accountants, for example?
yeah, like if you're looking for people who are accountants, what you would do would be you would have a question just asking somebody like, what's your profession or what line of work are you in? And you list a bunch, and you accept the ones that you're looking for.
And so you can say like, I want 200 accountants to take the survey.
Oh, so like if you're setting it up yourself,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you could, what you would do is like you could set the number to 200. Though, as the researcher in me, I would say you probably don't need 200. You probably only need a few, but yes. And then you set some screeners for like looking for like by profession, income level, if that's perhaps something that might help narrow it down. Yeah, and a couple other things like in terms of like you can kind of start first with like trying to figure out like someone's employment status and then kind of figure it out. Yeah.
But you can say like, so based on the question, like if they respond to something other than accountant, then they won't proceed to the rest
Correct.
of the test. Right?
Yeah, so what happens is that you will see, like you can create like a bunch of possible answers that they can pick from. And so you'll have like dentist, vet, accountant, librarian, teacher, athlete, artist, whatever. And then you can set each one to reject or accept.
Cool.
And there's another feature, like if you're trying to find somebody who, say, is an accountant who also is like really into photography for whatever reason, that you might actually want this. I can't think of a reason right now, but let's say there's a reason. You can, there's another way to do the screeners where there's a multi-select, meaning they can pick a bunch. And and you can set it to must select, may select, or reject. So that in a situation like that, where you have a lot of them, I always, this is like the most fun part of my job, is I create like fake things, like fake companies, fake hobbies, I just throw in words, because like there will be some people that are like, yeah, everything. So I'm a big fan of using Timosil whenever I can, because Timosil is fake medicine from Arrested Development. Just throwing that in, and anyone who clicks Timosil out, you're a liar. You're not really, like, you might actually be into photography, but you also are a liar, and I'm not interested in liars. So that is the way you can screen. Yes?
So if it helps, sometimes I use UserTesting, and when I want to add users that are not part of UserTesting.com, I run my own survey, and then when I pick these people, I send them a link to use UserTesting, so I can also get my own audience.
Yes. Yeah, so you can do that, or if you have found that like there are particular participants that you really love their feedback and you want them to participate again, you can ask them to participate again. And like if you like say you have like a longitudinal study where like or like something that is where you want for whatever reason you want this person's feedback on you know, a mobile device, a tablet, and a computer. You can do that, and you just sort of, again, like at the start of this the test, or when you're screening, let people know that this is a 3-part test. It will take this much time over time. Like, are you willing to continue? So you can do that, or you can like select a favorite user. But yeah, you can also like create a panel. And like there are times where like because it's really specific. Like for one, it was like very specific customers that they had that weren't on the user testing panel, and they did something like what you did, where we contacted them, the person who wasn't on the user testing panel, and then got them signed up so they could do it. Any other questions about screeners while we're talking about screeners? I could keep talking about other things, but I could just also just answer some questions if anyone has any questions. Well, then let me talk very quickly about the analysis part. Let's just page 1 million. Maybe if I just do that. There we go. So one of the benefits of the tool, and I know this sounds like an ad, but it actually is pretty cool, is that you can take notes while the video is playing. And so what you see here, like with the brackets, that's a tag. And this is super helpful because if you are doing the research yourself, or your team is, this is a great way that you can organize everything, because once you are all done with all of your annotations, there's a way to export all of this to an Excel spreadsheet. And then you can filter it to like, I just want to see something that's homepage. I just want to see something that's search results. I just want to see whatever it is that you're trying to filter for. So it makes it a little bit easier to go through all of your results rather than seeing like a million notes at once. You can just refine your notes. You can also create clips. So you can just sort of like see the task. And again, this is really great for it's great for me like in terms of like reporting back to clients, but again, like for stakeholders, it's one thing if I tell you, I don't know, people really like had a hard time with this, and I can explain why. Showing somebody try to do something for 5 minutes and not be able to speaks, or not even 5 minutes, 30 seconds for something that should take 2 speaks way louder than like me telling you academically what's wrong with it. So a video clip is nice. You have a question?
Yeah, just the 215 is, as opposed to the 310. Were both of those, was the 310 added automatically after annotation?
No, unfortunately not. So this is like a little trick that researchers will do, like if you're going through and you know, like if you want to then later create clips, it depends how you like. I personally don't create clips until like I've watched everything and I figure out what it is I want to focus on. And some people like to just go through and create clips at the same time, or go back. And a really easy way to do it is, so like this is the start of the task, like when you started writing and taking notes, the 215. And the 310, somebody put that in and said, at 310, that's when I want the clip to end. So then when they click this to create a clip, they just know very quickly they can just put in 215, 310, done. End of story. And the annotation will transfer, so you don't have to write that out again. But yeah, that's a good way. It's a time-saving thing. So in terms of like something that's good and not so good, it will have, so when somebody goes to the next task, you can see that time, like on the export, you'll see the time they started it, and then you can see the time that they move on to the next task. This is helpful for looking at something like at afar, like so when you look at your Excel spreadsheet of like seeing like roughly how long somebody took on something, and also there's a metrics tab on the dashboard that you can see this all without seeing the Excel spreadsheet, where you can just sort of see like the length of time on task. This is great for just generally trying to see like if there are any pain points, especially if like you're doing a study with, for whatever goddamn reason, for 200 accounts. But this would be great because you're probably not going to watch 200 videos. You're probably only going to watch a few because that's a lot of videos. So looking at that is great for just figuring out what you want to focus on. If you're looking to absolutely calculate time on task, there still is not a great tool for that. It's called the brain. You just gotta write it down. Yes?
So have you had people using your tools for testing apps before they go to market?
Oh yeah, all the time, every day.
So, and at what stage, as a researcher, at what stage, like, would you start testing, like a proof of concept, prototype, or?
I mean, as soon as you can. Like,
As soon as you have something that looks like an app.
no, not even. I mean, like, you can even start with just like not even having them go anywhere. Just like questions that you have, like if it's like an exploratory study, like you would, where you're just like trying to figure out what people need. You can do that, where and you don't even need to send them anywhere. I've tested with for apps where, I mean, it's just like the X's, you know, like there are no images, Laura nips them everywhere, and all they're really looking for are like a few specific things. Yes, all the time. And we highly suggest it, especially like if you're trying to, it's really great for like making decisions of like, if you want to compare a couple designs, like what is, it can help steer you in the direction, potentially. And again, it's like nothing's perfect, but yeah. As soon as you can, test early, test often. That usually is the way to go. And then like once you have something a little bit more fleshed out, we test a lot with prototype tools like Envision. And again, like it's great if it's like fully clickable, sure, but I mean, I would rather that you as a designer or whatever spend less time making this like the perfect prototype than just figuring out what it is you want to figure. So like, or researching what it is you want to research. You know, so it's like you only have a few things that are clickable, and that's fine because that's all you really are looking for right now.
So is this also creating some sort of heat map as an average of the videos, or is it just video by video?
Not a heat map, but like in terms of like where people clicked, is that what you mean?
Yeah, like is it averaging like is it somehow averaging the videos, or is it each video by itself?
No, it's averaging all right. I wish I could. I want to pull something up for you, but I can't because it's totally from a client. What you will see is it's a spreadsheet. It's
Okay.
I mean Excel. It's not pretty, but it is what it is. And you can see by participant, and we'll have like different categories. And then there's a new feature where it will tell you like if there's a ratings question, what the average rating was, and also I want to say there's average time on task. I so rarely personally use that, so I don't need, because it's mostly like focused on other things, but I'm pretty sure that's also there. But that type of, I don't know if that's exactly what you're looking for, but yeah. Like I said, then you can filter to only see the things that you're looking for. Here's a metrics view. Okay, so yeah. So I should have just gone one further. So you can see, so this is on your dashboard, and you can see like how long it took people. And at a glance, you're like, 3 seconds, 4 seconds, 37 seconds, what happened here? And then you can click and be directly placed in the video at that point to see what happened. So it's good. And I mostly use the metrics view for when I'm doing like a sampling, like when I have a larger study. If like somebody says like, we want 30 participants, but we want the report in a week and a half. You're like, great, well, I'll give you 6 participants or whatever. So like, it's really good to see at a glance. And again, I should have scrolled a little bit further in my own presentation. Here's the metrics view. So again, it's not pretty. It's an Excel spreadsheet, and it actually has changed. There's been a bunch of they're like constantly updating, like as in they just updated it. So what you'll see on this side over here, pretend that this exists over here, would be the averages, and this is what your dashboard looks like. So you can play each video. Yeah. Let's see. Oh, and you can also sort of see at a glance like the demographics this will say right here, just brief, like the very general demographics, the age, where they were. Any other questions? Yes?
So in the previous slide, you showed that there were 2 users who did 3 and 4, and 1 user 37, right? Let's say we sample. I'm looking for a rule of thumb here, like what happens in a sample of, for example, 20, we found like about 12, 30 people did well, but a few didn't do well. What do you take away from that? What do you conclude from that?
Well,
like when a significant but not majority.
Yeah. I mean, I think
what's
that,
the rule of thumb in
I mean,
these kind of things?
I think there's a certain amount of like common sense rule of thumb, which is like, for most people, this worked fine. But there are still these issues that, like, if you have time, work on. So it's not like this is an absolute priority because every single person or most people have problems with it. But it's like, so this is more of a low priority then. I mean, if like what you're really trying to do is like fix that thing and you found out, yeah, there actually are a few people where this is an issue for, then fix that thing. But I would say, again, I'm not a designer, but like in terms of what I would say, like as a researcher, in terms of my feedback, I would say, the site was usable for most people. However, there were these few usability issues, but most people found the site intuitive. So.
Is that a common process? It's, I know there's no big answer to it. There's no fixed number, but what do you do during the user testing process, in the analysis process? Do you take a look at all the users who didn't pass the test, or what do you do?
Not pass the test, because we're not testing the user. Sorry, I noticed.
Okay, it's
Yeah.
not meet your expectations, right? And do you analyze those, or do you?
Well, so
what is the process?
Yeah, so like if you have a small sample of videos, like if you only have 5, you watch all 5. If you have 10, you watch all 10. Where you only sort of like pick and choose is when, like for time, and what you're really sort of looking for is like, if you are doing a sample and you have a ton of metrics questions where you can see at a glance, it will tell you the what, it will not tell you the why. So, yeah, I mean, when I've done the bigger samplings, when I have like a ton of users, I mean, if the point of the study is to find usability issues, I'm going to focus on the ones where there appear to be usability issues, because that's what they want to know. Like, if somebody took 5 minutes on something, the client wants to know that because they're really not interested in telling me how great my website is. So then I would focus on those. But again, it depends on what your objectives are, which is, I don't know if that's a satisfactory answer, but that's normally what it is. And I would say, like, in terms of thinking about your research, like when you're compiling the data, so I know there are some people that swear by like transcribing, which to me is like a super waste of time, because, and again, if you're thinking about this in terms of like lean UX, like iterative testing, transcribing is not the way to go because it takes forever. I don't know if you've ever transcribed, it takes forever. And so what you're really looking for is like, again, look at your objectives that you have on your sticky note and just take notes on those, because you could take notes on a lot of things potentially, but you're just focused on this right now. If you see something of interest, sure, note it, fine, save it for later, but like sort of like keep your notes focused so that when you can compile your research, present it to the stakeholders, you have like far less to wade through, so it makes your job a million times easier. Yes?
You mentioned earlier that some people use it for testing more experience-based projects. I wonder if you could talk a bit about that.
Yeah. So I had one client that wanted to know, and this was interesting because like we didn't do any recording. We just like had the person do something and then report back to us, and like they had to fill out a survey, and there were some trick questions to make sure they actually went, and like requirements, like so they actually did it, where it was like, go to the store. The client wanted to know how its employees were actually talking about something. And so we sent them in with some questions. We screened heavily to make sure, like, are you cool doing this? Like, don't take any pictures of the employees, because that's not cool. And like just report, what do they say about this? What do they say? So there's that. But then they're also like with the front facing camera, people do like unboxing. If you go to the website, I think they may still have up some clips of people like going to Best Buy and like an interaction with as the person's trying to shop for, I don't know what, something, a dryer, whatever, and like looking like doing what they would normally do for this dryer, and then they just like immediately go to their phone and like go to Amazon and like check the price. And so you see the video go from video to phone to then up, like an employee comes up and like asks the question, like what's going on? Again, trying to see the face because that's not cool, but there's things like that. Also, there are people like recording an experience of doing anything. Again, this is on, I think it's on the homepage, or it was on the homepage, where it's like somebody like, I don't know what the test was, but like, show me how you do your laundry. And it's somebody doing laundry. Now, I don't fully understand how they did the mechanics of this and this. I assume there was somebody holding the phone for them while they did their laundry. But yeah, so it's things like that. And again, like I said, they're getting a lot of unboxing stuff as well lately. But those are super fun, super interesting. Participants love to do them. Like they're really in it because it's like you get to be like a super detective. The only issue there is like for longer tests, they will cost more money and they take longer to fill. Like if you're doing like a basic test, it's gonna fill in an hour. If you're like screening heavily for people who specifically like you can trust to do this thing and do it correctly, it's gonna take a little longer. Plus, they have to get there. You have to pay them more because it takes more than 15 minutes of their time. You look like. Should I be wrapping it up? Stopping?
Yeah, we have time for one more question.
Okay.
Okay, that's perfect then. So, well, thank you very much, Alex.
Thank you.